My name is Kyle. Ever since I left home at 15, I've been living on my own. I never got married, and my younger brother, who's 10 years younger than me, beat me to it. My brother, Ryan, is 22, and he's about to marry the girl he's been dating since high school. That alone seemed happy enough, but apparently, the bride is the daughter of a gangster. It's my brother's wedding, so I'm really looking forward to it. I stuff a generous amount into the gift envelope and head to the venue. But what awaited me there was a brutal welcome. Wow, quite the turnout. Well, my seat's with the family anyway. Oh, Mom's here too. So I'm probably at that table, huh? Hey, I'm here. It looks like everyone's already here. Did you guys just get here too? Even when I asked, my parents just turned pale and didn't say a word. Wondering what was up, I lowered my gaze, expecting to find a nameplate at my seat, only to see. What? Get lost, punk. What the hell is this? When I looked up, the bride's side of the family erupted into laughter. Even the bride and groom, who were already seated, were laughing hysterically. The only ones not laughing were the guests who hadn't quite grasped the situation. Hey, bro. You saw your nameplate, right? Had it custom made just for you. Ryan, why would you do this? Did you really think I'm some punk? So you're the Kyle Ryan's been telling us about, the punk brother. Yeah, you do kinda have that punk vibe. Actually, maybe you really are one. Ryan said I'm a punk. How could you think that? We haven't even seen each other in over 15 years. That's exactly why. You haven't come back since you graduated middle school. So tell me, what am I supposed to think other than you're some loser punk? Look, I hate you. I've always wanted to cut ties with you. So we figured this would be the perfect opportunity to make that happen. What the hell? Then why did you even send me an invitation? If you didn't want to see me, you could have just kept it that way for the rest of our lives. It's not that simple. We need to say it properly, cutting ties, officially. If something happened and you came looking for us, it'd be a pain, you know? But doing it like this. You didn't think I'd be hurt? And honestly, you didn't need to invite me to say all this. You could have just told Mom or something to let me know never to come near you again. Well, knowing you, I figured you'd bring a nice fat gift envelope. And sure enough, you gave us more than anyone else. So yeah, we're done now. You can go home. You keep calling me a punk, but aren't you a gangster yourself? If that's the case, you're not exactly in a position to talk, are you? I don't care, I don't. Because today's stars are me and my wife, you hear me? You're not even a side character, just a cash cow. Ryan, you weren't like this when I left home. What happened? Aren't we still family? Family? Are you kidding me? We haven't had a proper conversation in 17 years. We're strangers, got it? Total strangers. Honestly, I don't even get how you can pretend otherwise. The guys I met at school, the people I've met since joining the gangster. Anyone feels closer to me than you ever have. I don't like how you're putting this. It's like you're saying I chose not to see you. Isn't that exactly what happened? If you actually cared about me, you would have shown up now and then. But you didn't even come home for the holidays, not once. And now here you are, acting like some big shot brother. Whatever. I don't need you. Just leave and don't ever show your face again. Why do you have to say it like that? What happened to you in the last 17 years? What happened? Are you serious? Too much to count. There were times I wanted to talk to you, to ask for advice. But you were never there. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad kept comparing me to you. Your brother would have done better. Your brother wouldn't have screwed this up. I'm me, and you're you, right? I'm pissed off at you and them. So, in simple terms, you're sulking? What? No. I'm telling you I hate you. You walked out on us and never came back. No matter what I did, you didn't care. That's not true. As your brother, I made sure to support you when it mattered. I bought you that bike in middle school and all your sports gear in high school. I paid for all of it. What more could you possibly want? Oh, so just because you threw some money around, that makes you a big brother? That attitude of yours pisses me off. Acting like you're better just because you're older. Do me a favor and disappear. Never show your face in front of me again. I joined the gangster to win. Marrying this woman? That's because it promised to be the gangster boss in the future. Mr. Keller likes me. Hell, I'm already the lieutenant. I don't care if you're a punk or whatever. You mean nothing to me. If you're not leaving, then bow down to me. Regret the way you've ignored me all these years. Ryan, I get where you're coming from, but get lost, punk was way too much. That's no way to talk to your brother. That lecture of yours pisses me off too. Didn't I say it's been 17 years? I already told you we're strangers. So don't you dare try to preach to me. I could beat the crap out of you right here, you know. Just as Ryan lunged at me, the bride's father grabbed his arm. Hey, calm down. If you do that here, someone's going to call the cops, no question about it. If that happens, your revenge will be for nothing, right? But Mr. Keller. I hate this guy. I just want to make him suffer. I've worked my ass off for this moment. I've taken on every dirty job you gave me. I've done everything I could to get in your good graces. And now, finally, all my hard work is about to pay off. Still, beating him to a pulp right here is boring, isn't it? If you really think he's just some punk, bring him under our group's wing instead. That way, he'll never dare defy you again. Hey, why are you just assuming I'm some punk? There's no way you could know what I'm up to, right? Someone who stormed out of the house and barely comes back couldn't possibly have a decent job. Anyone who's alive would think the same thing. I see. Well, you're not entirely wrong about that. Anyway, that's how it is. We can't have any doubts about the man marrying into our family, especially if he's gonna be the lieutenant. Sorry, but can you just disappear already? If you leave today, we're done. Strangers. If I see you in town again, I'll beat you to a pulp, so keep that in mind. It was then. The doors to the venue burst open, and a blonde-haired beauty stormed in. Boss. Should we crush this group? What did you just say? Hey. Who the hell are you? Don't come barging in here talking like that. Start by introducing yourself before spouting something so dangerous. And who's this boss you're talking about? Which one of us do you mean? The only one who deserves to be called a boss here is Mr. Keller, our leader. Mr. Keller, do you know this woman? And if so, who exactly is she trying to crush? No, I don't know any woman like her. I don't even need to deal with nonsense like this. Hey, young lady. You think you can wreck someone's happiness and just get away with it? I'm not talking to you guys anyway. And besides, would I call someone a boss if I didn't even know them? There's only one person I call the boss. Then who the hell are you talking about when you say the boss? If you keep spewing nonsense, I'll have you thrown out of here. Ha! You guys have really done it now, haven't you? I hope you're ready to get beaten to a pulp. Wait, don't tell me, the boss you're talking about is... Hannah, that's enough. There's no need to bother with people like them. But boss, if we let them disrespect you like this, your pride, it doesn't matter. I don't care about my pride. I thought he'd be happy to see me again after all this time. Sorry, Ryan. For being your punk of a brother. Wait. Why the hell is a blonde woman like her calling you the boss? Sure, I've been calling you a punk all this time, but are you really one? Well, I'm not exactly a punk, but it's close enough that I don't deny it. It's not something you need to get so worked up about. If you're saying you'll never have anything to do with me again, then you don't need to worry about it either. Hannah, leave these guys alone. They'll destroy themselves anyway. There's no need for us to dirty our hands. Tell that to the main family. Wait, hold on. What is happening right now? Why are you talking like you're so high and mighty? And what the hell do you mean by main family? Man, you're such a pain. Don't you already get the gist of it? Why bother asking when you already know deep down? Stop preaching and just answer me already. Who the hell are you talking about when you say main family? Wow. You really can't think for yourself, can you? When the boss says the main family, he's talking about the head family of your Mitchell group. He's referring to the Harrison Association. The Harrison Association. That's seriously our main family. Why the hell do you guys know about such a massive gangster group? That also means there's some kind of connection if you're reporting back, right? What the hell is going on? There's no need to overthink this. The answer is much, much simpler than you think. Sure, I might seem like some punk, but the organization I belong to is way more organized than you'd imagine. Hey, do you know about the Andersons? What? The Andersons? There's no way I'd know something like that. They're probably just some wannabe gang or something, right? You don't know. Well, maybe it's better that you don't. The Andersons is an organization that monitors the local gangster from the shadows. They're constantly watching to ensure no gangster groups step out of line with the main family. Has anyone from your crew ever disappeared without a word? Someone who never said they were moving or leaving the group but just vanished? Now that you mention it, there might be a few. But what does that have to do with anything? If the Andersons is just watching and reporting back to the main family, that means it's the main family who takes action directly. I know most of the people tied to the main family. And if they're going to summon anyone from our group, the main family would contact us directly. That's not entirely wrong. But you're missing something. The Andersons works directly under the Harrison Association. Once they report back and get approval from the main family, they have the right to handle things themselves. Meaning they don't need to go through the main family to deal with anyone causing problems. What the hell? No one told me that. The main family doesn't want the lower branches knowing about the Andersons. If people knew, they might take precautions against the Andersons and cause trouble without getting caught. That's why they're told to keep their existence under wraps. Then isn't you talking about it now a huge problem for the main family? Maybe you'll end up getting dealt with by the main family, too. Are you really the boss's brother? For someone who's supposed to be, you're ridiculously slow on the uptake. Shut up. Who the hell even are you? Why do you keep calling my brother the boss? After all this, you still don't get it? Boss, I mean, Kyle is the leader of the Andersons. What? My brother is the leader of this Andersons thing? Yeah, that's why I call him the boss, right? I only call Kyle the boss. As for my father, I call him the leader. Leader? Who the hell even are you? If you're calling your dad the leader, what family are you from? Hey, you might want to watch your mouth when you're talking to the daughter of the main family. What? The daughter of the main family? Who are you talking about? Me, obviously. Is your brain completely fried? I'm Hannah, the daughter of the Harrison Association. But don't bother remembering it. My father never introduces me to the crew or to the lower branches. Plus, since I'm with the Andersons now, I stay out of the public eye even more. Don't feel bad about not knowing me. It's something you don't need to know anyway. But still, I don't like the way you've been talking since earlier. That's a separate matter, and I'll make sure you're properly punished for it. What the hell? What is wrong with all of you? Are you saying I don't know anything? Is it so bad to not know? We're not saying it's bad. But you're an adult now, so you'll need to take responsibility for it. Take responsibility. What do you mean by that? First, you're going to apologize to the boss for pulling such a pathetic stunt with that nameplate earlier. Besides, I can't keep causing trouble for everyone else here. I'll inform you later about how you'll be dealt with. If you defy us, we'll report to the main family, and it won't just be you facing consequences. Your entire organization will have to take responsibility, so watch yourself. What? You're saying the whole crew would be held accountable? You think just because you're a woman, I won't do anything to you? You're dead wrong. Hey, Ryan. Knock it off. Just apologize already. Mr. Keller. Why should I have to bow down to some woman? I've never met anyone in my life who pisses me off this much. Mr. Keller, doesn't any of this bother you? You think it doesn't piss me off too? If it was just you taking the heat, I wouldn't care how much you snapped back. But if this involves the whole crew, that's a completely different story. Listen to me. You're the lieutenant, and I'm the leader. If the crew takes the blame for this, it could mean the end of the organization. Do you feel nothing as a lieutenant with so many people under you? It's not like I don't feel anything. But I hate this. Why the hell should we be punished by people like them? They're not exactly on the straight and narrow either. Stop whining and apologize. I'll bow down too if that's what it takes. So just swear you'll never do something like this again. No way. I absolutely refuse to bow. Not for all the money in the world. That's how much I hate my brother. Isn't that what you understood when you agreed to let me pull this stunt with the seating card? That's because I thought you needed to free yourself from your brother's shadow. If I bow now, my heart will still be under his control. I refuse. If you want to bow so badly, Mr. Keller, do it yourself. All right. Can we drop this farce already? Shut up. I'm talking to Mr. Keller right now. What? This whole thing started as a conversation between you and my boss. And now you're just ignoring my boss side of things? What the hell is wrong with you? Shut your mouth. I don't care if you're the main family's daughter or whatever. Stay out of this, woman. What did you just say? You're underestimating me because I'm a woman, aren't you? Fine. There's no need for any more discussion with you idiots. Boss, are you good with this? Can I just take care of these guys? Whoa. Calm down. Stop acting like the three of you can settle this yourselves. As you said, this is between me and Ryan, isn't it? But his tone is impossible to ignore. It's fine. Thanks, Hannah, for being angry on my behalf. But it's over now. I'm cutting ties with Ryan. If he doesn't want me in his life, then so be it. But, of course, I'll still be reporting all of this to the main family. Wait a second. I can't overlook that as the leader. I have a duty to protect my men as their leader. I'll apologize. Just don't report this to the main family. Don't try to weasel out of this. Do you think I'll let someone off the hook when they acted like they were completely uninvolved? You joined Ryan in calling me a punk, didn't you? Sorry to say, but as much as you think I'm just a punk, I can't afford to let anyone disrespect me. Don't worry. I haven't been ordered by the main family yet, so I'm not going to deal with this right now. Relax. Though it's probably only a matter of time. You've got to be kidding. Hey, Ryan. He's your brother, isn't he? Get on your knees and apologize. That's the least you can do. I will never apologize. I've spent my whole life being compared to someone I can barely even remember. I've always been second. I've finally gotten my chance to stand in the spotlight. And now you want me to live under him again? I can't stand it. Ryan, are you seriously saying that as the lieutenant? To think my own brother is so stubborn he won't even apologize. I'm truly disappointed in you. Well then, I think I'll be leaving. This wedding's not fun in the slightest. Goodbye, Ryan and Mr. Keller. I won't forget about you or the Mitchell group. I'll talk to the main family, and we can settle this later. Oh, and I'll be taking back the wedding gift I gave you. There's no way I'd let you get away with putting me through this and still collect my money. See ya. As I headed for the exit, other attendees began to stand up and leave one by one. Most of the people at this wedding were acquaintances of mine. Some were even members of the Andersons. In fact, more people sitting in Ryan's friends section were under my command. What? Why are all of you leaving too? This has nothing to do with you. Hey! Didn't you hear me say wait? Ryan's shouts rang out, but they were in vain. Nearly everyone disappeared from the venue. Since the food and drinks were untouched, I spoke to the reception and retrieved the wedding gifts. With most of the guests gone, I'm sure the wedding costs will be tough to cover. Man, I've never seen anyone stand up to their own brother like that before. Are you sure it's fine to leave those guys alone? We could have dealt with them. Yeah, maybe. But honestly, it's not my problem anymore. I'll let the main family decide. I headed straight to the main family's headquarters to report what happened. They instructed me to hold off for now and wait for further orders. Then, a few weeks later, Ryan and Mr. Keller suddenly appeared at the Andersons' office. Hey! Is my brother here? Your dear little brother came all this way. Why not show your face? Sighing at the nuisance, I stood up and walked toward the entrance. Ryan and his crew stood there, looking like they were ready for a fight. My not-so-dear brother is here, so I showed my face. What do you want this time? Here to whine about the wedding? Nah, it's not like that. I just wanted to talk about what happened. Oh? Are you here to beg for forgiveness? Or maybe you've had a sudden change of heart and decided to apologize? Nope, I'm not here to apologize. I just want you to promise not to report this to the main family. Why the hell are you acting so high and mighty? If you want me to let this slide, you should be groveling. Like hell I'm gonna apologize to you or act all humble. All you need to do is decide whether you'll forgive us or not. You think I'd forgive you? You're the one who wanted to cut ties, remember? I'm giving you what you wanted, cutting ties completely. You should be grateful. Though maybe not in the way you imagined. Oh, is that so? If that's how you want it, then fine. Fine? What do you mean, fine? I mean, if you won't forgive me for something like that, then I'm done. Boys, surround him. At Ryan's command, a group of men appeared, surrounding the Andersons' office. What the hell is this? If you won't forgive me, then I can't forgive you either. Your shadow has been suffocating me my whole life, so I decided to physically cut ties with you. Oh? So this is your plan to get rid of me, huh? Exactly. There's no way you can handle this many guys surrounding you. You didn't see this coming, did you? I'm ending this here and now. I see. You thought I wouldn't be prepared, so you showed up out of the blue to take me down. That's right. You've mocked me for long enough. This ends here. Both you and that Andersons organization. That's disappointing. What's disappointing? If anything, it's you who's pathetic. You're about to get beaten to a pulp by us. The fact that you think you can take me down, that's what's disappointing. What the hell are you saying? Quit spouting nonsense. Enough. Take him down. At that moment, the Mitchell crew found themselves surrounded by an even larger group of men. What the hell is this? What's going on? It's exactly what it looks like. Your every move has been watched. Nothing you've done is a secret. But how? We planned everything quietly, keeping it within the crew. Did you forget what the Andersons does? We monitor gangster groups, report to the main family, and take care of things ourselves when necessary. I told you that's our job in the Andersons, didn't I? So how do you think we keep watch? Movements even the head family wouldn't notice. How did you think we were able to track all that? I don't know. It's simple. There are spies planted in the offices of the main family's subsidiary groups. Highly trained spies. They're so good, even the crew never notices. You didn't figure it out, did you? You had one in your crew too. But there's no way you could have mobilized this fast. There's no problem when preparations are already in place. Plus, we had orders from the main family. Funny enough, we were just about to head to your office anyway. Shall we go together? You can't be serious. Why are we being dealt with? We didn't do anything wrong. Don't worry. You'll get your explanation when we arrive at the Mitchell office. Take every Mitchell members and load them into the cars. We're moving out. Wait. No. I'm not going anywhere. Give it up, Ryan. It doesn't matter what you say or do. It's over. The Anderson members moved in, taking Ryan and Mr. Keller into custody. After a drive, we arrived at the Mitchell Group's office, where Hannah was already waiting. From inside the building, angry shouting could be heard. Beside Hannah stood Ryan's wife, now immobilized and restrained by Hannah. Why? Why is this happening? What's going on? Explain this. Fine. I'll explain everything. It's pretty simple, really. First of all, this woman was running illegal clubs. Not just bars, but those kinds of places. And at outrageous prices. Anyone who refused to pay was violently beaten by her people. You get it now, don't you? We wouldn't even need to lift a finger. If we told the police, it'd be game over. The main family's orders are clear: immediate expulsion from their ranks, dissolution of the office, and exile from this town. I thought about letting things slide for now, but look at this mess. So I'll be carrying out the main family's orders as instructed. Wait. Please, no. We didn't actually do anything to you yet. And we're family. I'm your brother. Cut me some slack. Family? You think I forgot the things you said to me? What? I never want to see your face again. Get lost, punk. After that, Ryan and Mr. Keller, having lost their will to fight, were dealt with by the Anderson members. As a reward for my actions, the main family designated the Mitchell Group's office as the Andersons' new headquarters. Most of the Mitchell members were taken under the Andersons' wing to be retrained and disciplined. Ryan and the others have been declared missing, but in reality, we made sure they were properly dealt with. They won't be coming back to this town ever again. That wedding the other day was a total disaster, wasn't it? Honestly, after seeing that, I don't even want to get married anymore. Yeah, well, to be fair, that wedding was way too unique for its own good. By the way, Hannah, isn't Ryan and his wife around the same age as you? They are a year older. Honestly, it kind of makes me lose hope for everything. I used to think early marriages were something to envy. But after seeing that wedding, it kind of kills the dream, doesn't it? Well then, what kind of wedding would you want, Hannah? Well, I'd want a happy wedding with someone I love, of course. I see. So, want to try having a happy wedding? What do you mean by that? That's that. Just what I said, word for word. Hannah's face turned bright red, clearly flustered. I'd known about her feelings for a long time, but I was finally able to put my thoughts into words. From now on, I'll focus not only on my work with the Andersons but also on building a future with Hannah. What? What is this? Deadweight? It was the anniversary party for the company's founding. My father and I were supposed to sit at the same table, but to my shock, the name card next to mine read Deadweight. I was stunned, but this wasn't a dream. This was real. I had no idea what was going on or who could have done it. Not only me, but even my father had a frozen expression on his face. The people around us didn't notice since they weren't paying attention to the name cards on each table. Who would do such a thing? I'm so sorry if this upset you. I'll definitely find out who did it. Ah, there you are. I was wondering what you were up to. Found your name card, huh? Just as I crumpled my father's name card in frustration, I heard that infuriating voice from behind. It was Samuel, our department head. When I turned around, he was grinning as he stared at my hand. At that moment, I knew he was the one who created this awful name card. Was it you, Samuel? Yeah, it was me. This party's only for the elite. Why don't you and your father just head home? He smirked arrogantly, looking down on us as he said it loud and clear. That was the last straw. There are lines you simply don't cross, and this was one of them. Are you serious? Take that back now. You still have time to fix this. Why would I take it back? I didn't say anything wrong. You and your father are just useless freeloaders. So just leave already. He spoke with such confidence, as if everything he said was undeniable truth. At this point, there was no point in arguing. If he was so blind to the reality of his own situation, he'd soon learn the hard way. My name is Trevor. I currently work at an IT company, leading a busy but fulfilling life. But getting here wasn't easy. It had been a tough journey. Let me take you back to my childhood, when I was still in elementary school. I attended a public elementary school and would come home every evening. That day was no different when I arrived home at the usual time. I found my father there. It was unusual since he was normally at work during that time, so I entered the house feeling a bit puzzled. Hi, Dad. Don't you have work today? I got a call from your mom and came home quickly. She's planning to leave us. What? When I entered the living room, I saw my father sitting there, looking a bit dejected. He told me about my mother. I was utterly shocked, and to be honest, I was at a loss for words. Sure, my parents hadn't been getting along lately, but I never imagined my mom would leave. Why all of a sudden? I don't get it. Mom's leaving? What does that even mean? She's moving out to live with someone new. From now on, it'll just be you and me. Between the two, I'd always been closer to my dad. He played with me when I was younger, and I naturally gravitated toward him. If I had to choose, I'd choose my dad. But for an elementary school-aged kid like me, my parents' sudden divorce hit hard. After that, I stopped going to school and shut myself in my room. I bought sushi today. Eat it whenever you want, it's in the fridge. From that day on, I stayed locked in my room, barely talking to my dad. But even then, he always cared for me and remained on my side. I never went back to elementary school, but over time, I began to break free from my reclusive life. Eventually, I entered middle school and started attending classes. My lack of communication skills, a result of my isolation, made it hard to make friends, but I managed to graduate. Since I wasn't part of any clubs, I spent most of my time with my computer. That's why, after finishing middle school, I became a freelance programmer and entered the world of engineering. How's work going? Are you doing well? There are still a lot of things I'm not used to, but I'm enjoying it. That said, I want to grow as an engineer. so I'm thinking about switching to an IT company in the future. I see. If there's anything I can do to help, don't hesitate to ask me anytime. My father works at a major corporation and is exceptionally capable at his job. Unlike him, a highly educated and elite professional, I'm a middle school graduate who stumbled along the way. But he never looked down on me. Instead, he accepted me as I was, providing a home where I could relax and focus on my work. 2 years later, I transitioned to an IT company and officially started my career as an engineer. I worked tirelessly every day, and by the time I turned 30, I had become independent and started my own company. Dad, can I talk to you about something? What is it? After establishing my company, I devoted myself to growing it. Before I knew it, the company had expanded to over 100 employees. But then, I hit a major hurdle. Recently, I feel like I've been failing as a CEO. On top of that, I don't think it suits me. I feel more comfortable working in the field than managing people. I never had great communication skills or strong leadership abilities. Balancing the role of a CEO while growing the company was beginning to wear me out. Well, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. That's why I wanted to ask you to take over my position, Dad. What? The moment I said that, my father looked genuinely surprised. After all, he still worked for a major company, and it was a bold proposal even for family. I know it's a big ask, but the company has grown significantly, and I can only entrust it to someone I completely trust. Given your experience leading people in a major corporation, would you consider taking over? I never thought I'd receive such an honorable request from my own son. There's no reason for me to refuse, so I'd be happy to do it. I was stunned by his response, but more than that, I was overjoyed. I didn't expect him to agree so readily, but he seemed determined to do anything for me, and it reignited my motivation. Thanks, Dad. I'm counting on you. From that point on, I focused on leading field operations and balancing my work as an engineer. With my father managing the company, we operated like a two-person team. My instincts were right. My father used his vast experience and knowledge to unify the employees, rapidly expanding the company. Another decade passed. The company was so stable that even the executives my father had trained could run it without him. One day, I heard you're the project manager for something now. Is that true? Yes. Are you the newly appointed department head, Samuel? Yeah. Word about me must have reached you from the executives. When I arrived at work as usual, there was a large man sitting at the department head's desk, feet propped up on the table. I'd heard from HR that a new manager would be joining, so I immediately realized who he was, but I hadn't expected such behavior. Looking forward to working with you. So, I heard you're a middle school graduate. Is that true? There were already plenty of things wrong with this conversation. First, his choice of words. Addressing someone as a middle school graduate so casually on a first meeting? It was baffling how someone like this managed to hold down a corporate job. And most of all, putting his feet on the desk? It was beyond belief. That's correct. I'd been working with computers since middle school, so I became an engineer straight out of there. Because of that, I have a bit more experience than most people my age. Wow, that's pathetic. This company must be going downhill if they're making a middle school graduate a project manager. Are they planning to collapse or something? He glared at me with disdain, clearly hung up on my academic background, and let those words fly. Sure, my education isn't something to brag about. But I've consistently delivered results, and the project I'm managing right now is running smoothly. For someone who just joined the company to act like they know everything was more than a little aggravating. You're right, my academic background may not be impressive, but I'm doing my job properly, so please rest assured. I responded, not bothering to hide my slight annoyance. Middle school graduate, middle school graduate. Does he not understand that academic credentials aren't everything? Oh. Are you talking back to me? For someone who graduated only from middle school, you sure are cocky. That was one unnecessary comment too many. While he might technically be my superior in this workplace, it's unacceptable to suppress people from a position of authority. A workplace like that stifles flexibility and creates a toxic environment. Sure, when you're younger, emphasizing academic credentials makes some sense. But at our age, why is he still hung up on this? In a professional setting, people should be evaluated by their work, not their past education. I graduated from the prestigious Tokyo University. You should consider yourself lucky to even be working alongside someone like me. It's been over 20 years since he graduated, yet he's still clinging to past glories. How pathetic. For someone of his age, bragging about academic achievements just comes across as sad. In the workforce, producing results in your current role is infinitely more important than a stellar academic record. Even if someone lacks formal education, companies value those who deliver results. People with high academic credentials but poor performance aren't what companies need. Whether he understands this or not, my main concern was whether such a person could effectively lead as the new department head. Once this project is over, don't expect to be given any significant assignments. Now that I'm the department head, things will be done my way. Everything the previous head set up is irrelevant. That's fine, but I hope you'll judge based on work results. Not on academic achievements from over 20 years ago, but on what's being done now and what outcomes are being delivered. That's the real measure of an employee's ability. I said it directly and clearly. My attitude was clearly irritating him. He even clicked his tongue in frustration. Don't you dare talk back to me. Got it? Now, get back to your work. We ended up in an argument on his very first day, but I didn't feel I had said anything wrong. It was Samuel, who judged everything solely based on academic credentials, who was clearly in the wrong. Still, there was no point in dwelling on it now. I decided to focus on what I needed to do. 3 months later, the project I had been managing as a project manager was completed, and I was assigned to a new project. You probably remember what I said before, but just stick to downstream programming on this one. What? You're not fit for important assignments. This is a small project for a minor company, so even if you mess up, it won't matter. I wasn't angry because my pride was wounded. Sure, downstream programming is less challenging compared to what I've done before. But if that's the job I'm given, I'll tackle it with everything I've got. That's the responsibility of a professional. Because that's the standard expected of an employee. Failure doesn't matter. What made me angry was Samuel's mindset that mistakes didn't matter just because it was a project for a small business. The same applies to his attitude about academic credentials. What perspective is he even coming from? No matter the job, you have to give 120% effort. Anything less damages the company's credibility and is incredibly disrespectful to the client. Whether it's for a small to medium-sized business or a global corporation, the responsibilities remain the same. Being a small to medium-sized business is not an excuse to cut corners. That should go without saying, don't you think? What? Are you seriously saying that? I couldn't understand why he looked so shocked. I felt like throwing his own words right back at him. If you think it's okay to slack off just because it's a small company, you're making a huge mistake. I knew Samuel looked down on me, and I knew saying this would likely provoke him. But I couldn't stand by and let his attitude go unchecked. I hadn't mentioned that I was the founder of the company, but I had my own principles, and I had no intention of lowering myself for Samuel. So, are you saying you want to pick a fight with me? I'm not interested in such a petty level of discussion. Pick a fight? Is that something a grown adult should even say? Well, fine. You'll regret standing up to me this much, I'll make sure of it. Remember that. With that, Samuel walked back to his desk. I was furious, and I couldn't just let this go. Determined to take action, I decided to consult my father. This kind of behavior can't be allowed. He's unfit to be in a leadership position, and more than that, he's a bad influence on the company. You're right. I completely understand what you're trying to say, Trevor. My father nodded thoughtfully as he listened. Maybe you, as the CEO, should give him a firm warning. Otherwise, this won't improve anytime soon. I trusted that my father, who had a knack for handling people, would resolve this issue. However, his response was unexpected. Honestly, I don't think it'll work if I approach him from above. And besides, people can't change their true nature. What? Someone who genuinely looks down on others from the bottom of their heart won't change, no matter what anyone says. That kind of personality can't be fixed. People like that aren't needed in a company. Sometimes, you have to be cold-hearted enough to let them go. Since starting the company, I had always carried a heavy responsibility. It was my duty to provide for the employees. That's why I believed it was the company's role to nurture and support even employees who struggled to perform well. But my father had a different philosophy. He believed in drawing a line at a certain point. He was the one who had grown the company to its current size. I decided to trust his judgment. While I hoped that Samuel might change if my father said something, I realized that the world isn't always so simple. And so, I returned to my usual daily routine. So, your dad's in this company too? He introduced himself to me earlier today. What? Yeah. I heard he's just a regular employee. Different department, though. Could it be that he got in through connections? Since the company had grown, interactions between upper management and field employees had become less frequent. We also didn't require a CEO interview during recruitment, so Samuel probably didn't know my father was the company's CEO. Considering I had just talked to my father about Samuel, he had likely greeted Samuel while pretending it was a coincidence. I wasn't sure what he was planning, but now Samuel knew my father was in the company. Your dad looked pretty shabby. He's the kind of guy who would raise a low-educated loser like you. Guess it runs in the family, huh? Excuse me? Next time HR makes decisions, I might just demote both of you. Better be ready. As Samuel smirked and spat out his remarks, I let out a deep sigh. Starting with mocking my education, he then moved on to harassing me for speaking the truth. What could he possibly find enjoyable about doing such things? I had already decided that I couldn't continue working with someone like him, and sooner or later, we would part ways. There was no way someone like Samuel could be entrusted with the critical role of department head. This incident solidified that decision for me. However, I was busy preparing for the company's 20th anniversary celebration party, which was just a month away. The event was a large-scale party, with all employees from the main office invited. The company had come this far thanks to the hard work of countless employees over the years. And I was determined to make it a celebration worth remembering. Finally, the day of the party arrived. I saw the venue during the walkthrough, but it really turned out to be an extravagant event. Enjoy yourself today, Dad. Thanks. I will. The venue was even more luxurious than I had imagined, and the employees who had already arrived looked like they were having a great time. Seeing how much effort everyone put into their work every day, I wanted them to fully enjoy this celebration. With that thought, I made my way to my seat. What? What is this? Deadweight? My father and I were supposed to sit at the same table, but to my shock, the name card next to mine read deadweight. I was stunned, but this wasn't a dream. This was reality. I didn't know what was going on or who could have done this. Even my father's face was frozen in disbelief. The other guests didn't notice since they weren't paying attention to the name cards. Who would do something like this? I'm so sorry if this upset you. I'll figure out who's responsible for this. Oh. I was wondering what you were doing. but it looks like you found your name card after all. As I crumpled up my father's name card in frustration, that infuriating voice came from behind me. It was Samuel. When I turned around, he was smirking, staring at the card in my hand. In that moment, I knew it was Samuel who had made this awful name card. Was this your doing, Samuel? Yeah, it was me. This party's only for the elite. Why don't you and your father head home? Looking down on us, he said it loud and clear. That was it, I completely lost my temper. There are some things you just don't say, no matter what. Are you serious? Take that back. You still have time to fix this. Why would I take it back? I said nothing wrong. You and your father are just useless freeloaders. So just leave already. Samuel's smug confidence made it clear he believed his words were absolute. If he was going this far, there was no point in arguing. He didn't realize the precarious position he was in, but he was about to find out. Shall we head home, Mr. Abbott? Samuel says an incompetent shareholder and CEO should leave. Yeah, let's do that. The other employees can enjoy the party without us. When I said this in front of Samuel, his smug expression immediately froze. He probably wasn't sure whether to believe me, but the mention of shareholder and CEO struck a nerve. The thing is, I wasn't lying. I founded this company and hold all the shares. And my father is the CEO of this company, a position I appointed him to. I wasn't exaggerating or making anything up. This is ridiculous. Do you really think I'd believe that? Stop lying. I'm not lying. My son founded this company, and once it grew, I took over as CEO. I'm using my experience as a director at Amazon's Japan branch. What? You're telling me you worked at a global giant like that? Stop making things up. Samuel's voice betrayed his disbelief, but it was clear he was also starting to panic. Finally, Samuel began to notice not just the composed expressions on my and my father's faces, but also the pale faces of those around him. While the two of us remained calm and dignified, the others looked utterly stricken. I had instructed the upper management to keep our true identities hidden in order to expose Samuel's true nature. But his outrageous remarks, made in ignorance of who we were, had clearly sent chills down everyone's spines. Why is everyone acting like this? Isn't it obvious? Anyone would be horrified to hear such statements from their subordinate. Though it seems you still don't believe who we are. When my father said that, Samuel glanced around at the faces of the people nearby. One by one, they began to nod slightly, and at last, Samuel seemed to grasp the truth about our identities and the precarious position he was in. His face turned pale in an instant, his body trembling slightly as his breathing became unsteady. I am truly sorry. I had no idea you were Mr. Abbott, the CEO, and a shareholder. Please forgive me. Samuel bowed deeply, bending at a 90-degree angle. But neither my father nor I were moved. Samuel's change in attitude was purely because he realized our positions were far above his own. Up until this moment, he had assumed we were beneath him and had acted accordingly with reckless arrogance. That doesn't simply disappear, and I can't trust someone who changes their attitude so drastically based on status. Do you think just apologizing makes everything okay? Honestly, I don't even understand what you're apologizing for. Just saying sorry doesn't automatically fix everything. I deeply regret the incredibly disrespectful attitude I displayed toward you, Mr. Abbott, and the shareholder. I'm truly remorseful. Please, could you forgive me? It was as I expected. He completely misunderstood his mistake. It's true that one's attitude toward higher-ups should be mindful and respectful, as there are standards of decorum. But that's not what I was talking about. If he's apologizing only because of our higher status, does that mean he'll continue to behave the same way toward those he sees as beneath him? I was addressing a fundamental issue, but Samuel didn't seem to grasp it at all. So, if my father and I were in lower positions than you, are you saying your actions wouldn't have been wrong? What? You're apologizing because we're above you in rank, correct? At this point, I realized I likely wouldn't have another chance to speak with Samuel, so I decided to say everything I was thinking. As a person, I can't trust you. Do you understand what I'm saying? I truly regret my actions. I know now that what I did was wrong, no matter who it was directed at. In that case, leave this company. I have no intention of continuing to work with you any longer too. Hearing this, my father, who had been silent up to this point, added his agreement. We had no intention of continuing to employ someone like Samuel. Trust in him had been irreparably damaged. Are you firing me? I swear I'm truly sorry. Please, give me one last chance. You're a professional, aren't you? And yet, you can't distinguish between right and wrong. Why would someone like you deserve another chance? Please. I'll do anything. Finally, Samuel began groveling, dropping to his knees and bowing deeply. Clearly, he was desperate to save himself, oblivious to the judgmental stares of those around him. But it was too late. What Samuel had done couldn't be undone, nor could it be forgiven. Fine. If you're willing to work as the lowest-ranking employee, I'll consider giving you a last chance. I didn't expect Samuel to accept this proposal, but I decided to give him the opportunity. This is what a last chance means. If he wants to continue working at our company, he must face appropriate consequences. With his salary and position reduced, he would have to work from the role he once looked down upon. If he could accept that, I was willing to give him one final chance. Come on, there's no need for jokes like that. I'll accept a pay cut as a sign of my remorse. What? I was so shocked I momentarily lost my words. How could he still speak so arrogantly in this situation? A pay cut as if he had any say in the matter? The fact that he thought he could dictate his punishment only proved that he felt no genuine remorse. From now on, we might need to conduct proper CEO interviews to ensure we don't end up hiring someone like this again. What? Do you understand now? Our minds are made up. You have no place in this company. Don't bother coming in tomorrow. And there's no seat for you at this party. Please leave immediately. It seems Samuel believed he could remain in the company despite facing minor consequences, but my words made his face twist in displeasure. However, I was completely serious. Surely you're joking, right? Enough. I don't want to get angrier, and this party is meant to be a celebration. Leave now. Time is valuable, so you should start looking for a new job. Though, at your age, there aren't many companies willing to hire someone who's been fired. When my father finished speaking, Samuel collapsed to his knees on the spot. The people around him escorted him outside, bringing the matter to a close for the time being. Perhaps upset at being kicked out, Samuel repeatedly called my phone, but I blocked his number. After that, the party went off without any issues, and we were able to enjoy the evening. About Samuel, just to confirm, you're certain about firing him, right? Of course. The main reason is that I can't trust him as a person, and this isn't about personal emotions. But honestly, I can't forgive Samuel for how he treated you, Dad. No one, no matter who they are, gets to treat you like that. I had every legitimate reason to fire Samuel, and I didn't wield my authority out of personal spite. However, it was true that I held a personal grudge against him. From a young age, my father had been my savior. Without him, I wouldn't be who I am today. No matter the situation, he was always on my side, supporting me unconditionally. He provided the funding to start my company and always extended a helping hand whenever I was in trouble. To me, my father was everything, and I couldn't tolerate anyone treating him poorly. In my life, there's no one more important than Dad. Maybe it sounds childish to some, but that's how much I'm grateful to you. Thank you, Trevor. Hearing that makes me so happy. After the divorce, there were times when I thought I might break, but having you kept me going. I thought, how could I give up now? With that, my father ruffled my hair roughly with his big hand. He used to comfort me like that whenever I was feeling down as a child. It brought back a wave of nostalgia and warmed my heart. After it became just the two of us, you became my everything. So don't hesitate to rely on me, and let's keep supporting each other. Yeah. Let's do that. We shared a heartfelt hug, strengthening the bond between us once again. Later, we sent Samuel a formal termination notice, officially severing ties with him. Of course, I anticipated the possibility of resentment, and I didn't feel good about it. But this is the harsh reality of the professional world. While I doubted his personality would change, I still hoped that, if he truly reflected on his actions, he might succeed in his next workplace. Hey, about Samuel. I heard from the board that he found another job pretty quickly, but apparently, it's at a pretty rough company. Really? Is that so? Yeah. Getting fired at his age hit him hard, and he only got one job offer. On top of that, being fired led to his wife and kids leaving him. He's apparently living a miserable life now. I was genuinely shocked by his downfall. I had hoped he might turn his life around, but this was unexpected. His wife and kids left him? You mean they got divorced? Seems so. Apparently, he was a domineering husband and acted like a tyrant at home. When he got fired, he probably lost whatever value they saw in him. I see. No family waiting for him, stuck with a terrible job. I doubt he'll last long. Not that it's our concern anymore. If he had worked diligently, things wouldn't have turned out this way. Everything that happened was a consequence of Samuel's own actions, and there was no reason for us to feel sympathy or extend a helping hand. Following this, I implemented significant reforms in the company. We conducted thorough checks to ensure there were no other employees like Samuel and reviewed the work environment to make it more pleasant for everyone. While no major issues were uncovered, it became clear that some employees had been harboring unease. I thought this was normal for a workplace, so I just tried not to let it bother me. Even so, it's true that you weren't entirely comfortable. I'll discuss this with upper management and make sure things improve. Thank you for sharing your valuable input. Yes. Thank you for addressing even minor concerns like this. I'll keep working hard. By addressing these small complaints, I work to create an even better work environment for everyone. This experience taught me a lot. I had built this company from the ground up and earned the respect of many. But no matter how high I climb, resting on my laurels would be the beginning of the end. It's crucial to remember that the company thrives because each employee works hard every single day. Thank you so much for giving me valuable experiences and even a generous wage as an intern. I'm excited to officially join as a full-time employee in April. Being an intern doesn't change the fact that you contributed to our work. I'm looking forward to seeing you achieve even more. Keep it up. I will. As a member of the company's leadership, I know that sometimes cold, hard decisions must be made. However, the most important thing is to connect with each individual. I've wandered through dark times in my life more than once. But every time, my father was there by my side, supporting me. That kind of connection isn't limited to family, but it applies in the workplace too. I hope to never forget that, and to continue working with joy every day. Terrible. Someone destroyed it. The incident occurred at Sam's important exhibition of original artwork. The panels had been smashed to pieces by someone. Sam, calm down. There's only an hour left before the doors open. Let's fix this. Fix this? Look at it. I don't know if it's Japanese or Chinese, and I don't know Arabic any better. I don't know which one is the description of which exhibit. A heavy, gloomy atmosphere filled the exhibition room. Sam clenched his fists in frustration. Tears welled up in his eyes. "I'll fix it," I said as I gathered up the Arabic panels. My colleague frowned at me. "What? You, a guy from the admin department, can read Arabic?" "Don't lie." "I'm not lying." That's when my secret was revealed. And the reward for saving her from this crisis? "Hey, can you love me as much as you love my manga, Japanese comics?" she asked, cheeks flushed, leaning sweetly on me, an all too sweet future. The clock hit 5 p.m. At that moment, I, Tucker, shut down my computer. "Good work today," I greeted cheerfully and left the office labeled Administration Department before anyone could say anything. Outsider clocked out right at 5 again today. I heard the voice behind me. I knew they were referring to me as outsider, but I pretended not to notice. When I reached the entrance, I ran into Thomas, who was striding back into the office with a satisfied expression. Thomas smirked theatrically when he saw me, clearly ready to leave. Hey, outsider, oops, I mean Tucker. You're clocking out on time again, huh? Must be nice working in admin." Meanwhile, I'm the editor for Lin, whose weekly Shonen Era Mode has the highest sales of any shonen manga magazine, and whose books, anime, and movies are all major hits. I could never. Well, good for you. Thanks to your hard work, Lin's amazing creations are being shared with the world. Keep it up. I patted Thomas on the shoulder encouragingly and quickly exited the TG Publishing headquarters. "Like I need you to tell me that." Thomas's shouted complaint rang behind me, but I ignored it, of course. On the train, I pulled out my phone and opened my favorite novel and manga posting site. I noticed one notification. Oh, Zara M. Thus updated her manga. I was so happy I blurted it out. The woman sitting next to me turned her eyes toward me to look at something strange, so I made a small bail. Zara M. Thus was a manga artist I'd been supporting for a long time. Her style, which emphasized humanity's darker side, didn't get many views or high ratings, but I thought her work was wonderful. I started reading her updated manga right away. This one had a great development too. I couldn't wait for the next part. After hitting the like button and leaving a comment, I returned to the site's homepage. Looking at the rows of novels and manga titles, I couldn't help but smile. This site allowed members to post their original novels and manga for free. It didn't matter if you were a professional or an amateur. The reason I clocked out on time was to read these works. I love stories. Whether something was well made or not, I honestly couldn't tell. The works at the top of the rankings or those with only a handful of likes, to me, all of them are lovable. Because each one has the author's thoughts in it. Thoughts of wishing for peace, releasing pent-up frustration, wanting readers to smile, or sharing their love for a certain character. It's all unique. To say I love all of that would not be an exaggeration. Simply put, I'm a geek. Maybe you could call me a story geek. That's why Zara M. Thus is my favorite. Finishing work on time and reading as many stories as possible, whether by Zara M. Thus or other creators, is my simple joy. I'm satisfied with this lifestyle. I don't need anything more. The Era Mode 25th anniversary event took place in early July, when the scorching asphalt gave off the scent of summer's arrival. Since it was a company-wide event, even I, a member of the administration department, got to attend. Though labeled an event, it was more like a casual gathering. Manga artists who had previously published in Era Mode were invited to enjoy food and conversation. It meant I wouldn't clock out on time today, but I didn't mind. I enjoyed quietly observing everyone having fun while eating at the edge of the room. By the way, isn't Sam Z. Arthur here? We did invite him, but Sam doesn't really like events like this. Hearing the name Sam, I instinctively perked up. The ones talking were Christina, the Era Mode editor-in-chief, Thomas, and Lynn, Thomas's star manga artist. Suddenly, Thomas noticed me staring. "What's up, Tucker from admin? Do you want to join our conversation?" Yeah. Can I?" A wallflower, or more like wallpaper stain. Until then, I hurried over to the three of them. Thomas frowned, clearly irritated. "Judging by that reaction, are you a fan of Sam?" I answered enthusiastically to Lynn, who smiled at me despite my sudden appearance. "Yes. Sam? That'd be me, the devil, and the antique shop, or me devil for short. Next year marks its 10th anniversary since serialization began. I'm hoping there'll be some sort of event. But of course, Sam's brilliant works don't stop there. My personal favorite is Daydreaming. The protagonist's unwavering determination is so moving. Wow, that's a lot of passion." Daydreaming? Never heard of it. It's an early one-shot published in another magazine. If you want to read it, I'll lend you my copy, or better yet, gift you a new one. Lynn widened her eyes at my excitement, while Thomas scoffed, and Christina crossed her arms thoughtfully. "You're Tucker, right?" "I'm Christina, editor-in-chief of Era Mode." "Of course. You were Sam's editor for the first 3 years of Me Devil, right? You know your stuff. In that case, I'd like to ask you to be Sam's editor." "Huh?" Christina's words left both me and Thomas gaping. "Christina, this guy's from admin." "Yes, so it's only temporary. We're discussing a short-term serialization with Sam right now. And I thought it'd be perfect to have someone as passionate about Sam as you as his editor." "Me, as Sam's editor? Does that mean I'd get to see his work, his genius creations, before anyone else?" I swallowed hard. "But I'm not sure I can handle an editor's job." "Don't worry, I'll support you. I'll handle Mr. Fitzgerald and the admin department." "Please, won't you do it?" Christina bowed her head, and at that moment, the option to say no disappeared entirely. "Okay. I'll give it a try." "Thank you." Christina beamed and shook my hand firmly. "I'll talk to Mr. Fitzgerald about this right away. I'm sure he'll approve." With that, Christina walked off. I may have accepted, but me as Sam's editor? As doubt crept in, Thomas's annoyed voice cut through. "Hey! Enjoy it while you can. Sam's infamous for being a nightmare to work with. He's driven editors to quit with his impossible demands, isn't that right?" "Lynn? Well, yeah, that's kind of legendary in this industry. He's very particular, some might say difficult." "Sounds like Sam, all right." As I nodded in understanding, Thomas scowled in disbelief. "If this blows up, you might not even get to stay in admin, you know?" Thomas mimed, slitting his throat with a gleeful grin, and walked away laughing. A few days later, now officially Sam's temporary editor, I headed to Sam's place with Christina. She already declined in her email, you know. Is it even okay to visit then? If we don't go, we won't get anywhere." Hearing that she'd already refused, my nerves, already high since the morning, reached a new peak. I took an exaggerated deep breath and rolled my shoulders in preparation. Before I knew it, we arrived at Sam's apartment. It was a small, old 2-story building, and her unit was on the top floor in the middle. Christina rang the doorbell. No response. She rang again. And again. "Sam! It's Christina!" Christina knocked on the door, raising her voice. Light footsteps approached. "I told you not to come." The voice was high and melodic, like tinkling bells. I was shocked. I had assumed Sam was a man. The realization that there are female shonen manga artists made me ashamed of my fixed mindset. "I brought your new editor, Tucker. He's also a huge fan of yours." "Poof. Do you think you can bring someone like that and win me over?" "Not a chance." Sam's sharp tone reminded me of the characters in her manga, so much so that despite it being our first meeting, I found myself nodding, thinking, ah, yes, this is so Sam. At least let him see your face. Look, I even brought your favorite Ghirardelli caramel sauce. Ugh, caramel sauce. I was running low. No. I won't be bribed by something like that. So, Tucker, you said you're my fan, huh? If you're so eager to meet me, then surely you can stand there all night, right? Sam. That's too much. I'll do it. Tucker. Christina stared at me, dumbfounded. It's fine. I have water with me. Plus, I brought salt tablets because I was worried about heatstroke. Prepared, but that's not the point. Heatstroke isn't the only issue here. You don't have to cater to her whims like this. No, I'll do it. Please let me. You've got other work to do, so feel free to leave. Sensing my determination not to budge, Christina sighed deeply. I'll come back around 6 p.m. Is there anything you'd like to eat? I'll bring dinner. In that case, I'd like Buffalo Wild Wings extra spicy chicken wings. You know, the ones from Medieval Chapter 462, Volume 52, page 120, Panel 2. Where the protagonist Lirio is forced to eat them by the demon heroine Neuro and breathes fire? They're seasonal, you know. Got it. With that, Christina returned to the office, but true to her word, she came back at 6 p.m. with the spicy wings, fries, and additional water and salt tablets. Thank you. How much do I owe you? Don't worry about it. Sorry, but I have to head home. You've got a family, Christina. Don't worry about me. Indulging Sam's whims is my whim. Thanks, and sorry again. I've filed your overtime request. I was struck by how her thoughtfulness toward her team was probably why she managed to lead such a quirky editorial staff, Thomas included, so effectively for so many years. Christina headed home, the sun sank into the sea, and stars began to twinkle above. The warm scent of a summer night filled the air. I occasionally felt Sam peeking at me through the door, but I pretended not to notice. Instead, I searched for the summer triangle in the sky. I learned about constellations from Sam's one-shot, The Night Train in February. For example, Cygnus, one of the stars in the summer triangle, is also called the Northern Cross because its shape resembles a cross when connected. Or that Antares is the brightest star in Scorpio. Incidentally, that one-shot was inspired by Ray Bradbury's The Illustrated Man, which I read afterward. As I searched for constellations, inhaled the summer night air, and occasionally listened to passing conversations, the eastern sky began to brighten. The first thing that came to mind was The Sun at Noon, a one-shot horror manga with a Yandere boy protagonist that gave me chills. Why are you actually still here? The delicate voice startled me. I turned around to see a woman of such breathtaking beauty she could bring a kingdom to ruin, standing at the doorway of Sam's apartment. As I stood there, momentarily entranced, she shot me a sly, mocking smile. Surprised? That your beloved shonen manga artist, Sam Zia Arthur, is actually a woman? No. I figured that out when you were talking to Christina. Oh. Well, whatever. Just come in. I can't very well send someone away who stood out there all night. Turning her back, Sam entered the apartment. I hesitated a moment before her curt hurry-up made me follow. Once inside, she sat me in a chair and placed a bag of raisin rolls and a cup of coffee in front of me. That's breakfast. You haven't eaten, right? Thank you. I didn't hesitate to open the bag and start eating. Meanwhile, Sam sat in a chair across from me, staring silently, which made me nervous. You stayed out there all night as promised, so I let you in. But I'm not drawing any manga. Is that so? My voice dropped in disappointment, and for just a moment, a flicker of confusion passed through Sam's eyes. It quickly returned to its cold indifference. A short-term serialization, right? I know your agenda. You want to oversee the end of my manga career. That's not true. This is your chance to bloom again. I don't care. Even if I bloom, there's no point if no one's there to see it. Sam's defeated attitude frustrated me so much I clenched my fists under the table. Then, why are you still drawing manga? I'm not drawing anything. You don't see my work in any magazines, do you? But you're posting it online, aren't you? Zara M. Thus. Her eyes widened. What? No one reads that. There's just one weirdo who's favorited my page and leaves comments every single time. Wait. Don't tell me. I'm that weirdo. Sam stared at me, stunned, then sighed deeply and slumped back into her chair. How did you figure it out? I changed my style, my tone, even switched to a complete opposite genre romance. At first, I didn't realize it was you either. But the more I read, I noticed it, the phrasing, the way you draw lines. The little quirks in the art and handwriting. And the pen name. Sam Z, Arthur and Zara M. Thus are anagrams, aren't they? Plus, I remembered something you said in an interview. You described your art as a medium for evoking deep emotion through visuals, while Zara M. Thus work sends a strong message to readers as the story concludes. At their core, both reflect the same goal, conveying something through art. What started as a hunch became a certainty the deeper I read. Can you read my mind or something? Sam stared at me, dumbfounded. I felt like this was my chance to push a little further. I discovered your work in 6th grade. It was your daydreaming one-shot published in era mode. At the time, my parents' marriage was falling apart. I'd given up, thinking it was their decision to make. But in that story, when Matt, the protagonist, was about to give up saving his kidnapped sister, Tamara, his friend Nolan said, if your happiness is still within your reach, don't give up. Even if they say it's like chasing a dream in broad daylight. That line struck me deeply. It's from the first panel on page 27 of Daydreaming. I thought, maybe my happiness is still within reach, so I fought to convince my parents to reconcile. And they did. Now, they're still happily married. Sam's clear, beautiful eyes were fixed squarely on me. If it weren't for that manga, I would have ended up living a completely different life. I'm here today because of you and your work. So if you still wish to share your stories with readers, I want to help you do that. Having said everything I wanted to say, I took a sip of coffee to calm my nerves. Sam looked at me with a difficult expression before breaking into soft laughter. Her smile was like a violet in bloom, and I found myself staring, spellbound. After a brief laugh, Sam let out a small gasp. Fine. I'll take on the short-term serialization. Really? Yeah. How could I say no to my one and only Zara M? Thus fan? She wore a faint smile that, for some reason, filled my chest with warmth. From that day on, I visited Sam's apartment every workday, brainstorming ideas with her. After much effort, we completed the name, storyboards, which Christina approved in the serialization meeting. As I exited the meeting room with a triumphant fist pump, Thomas mocked me with a sneer. A washed-up manga artist's work won't matter, especially with an amateur editor like you. Thinking this will see the light of day? Now that's a daydream. Thomas, remember this, if your happiness is still within your reach, don't give up. Even if they say it's like chasing a dream in broad daylight. That line only works because it's coming from Nolan, a high-spec, handsome guy, you know? Ignoring Thomas's frown, I headed straight to Sam. When I told her the storyboard had been approved, she mirrored my fist pump. And so, Sam's work began. But this was where the real struggle started. One day, I went to check on her progress, only to find Sam lying face down on her bed, pale as a ghost. What's wrong? I rushed over, panicked, as Sam looked up at me slowly. Tucker, tell me the truth. This manga isn't any good, is it? What? I know it. When I first thought of it, I was like, this is my masterpiece. But now that I'm drawing it, the story is bland, the plot's uninspired. And the characters are cliché. This boring manga isn't worth finishing. It looked like she had hit a slump. Probably the pressure of having a new serialization after so long. I'd been trained for moments like this by Christina and the senior editors. You're just tired, that's all. I brought your favorite Ghirardelli caramel sauce. Let's take a short break. When I held up the bag, Sam's face lit up immediately. But once she finished eating, the light in her eyes dimmed again. Even sugar doesn't help. Hey, admit it. You don't actually think this is good, do you? You just gave it a pass because you felt obligated to make me draw it. She started poking my cheek repeatedly with her finger. And honestly, it hurt. Sam. I'm sorry. To be honest, I don't really understand what's good or bad. What? Then why are you even my fan? Isn't it because you thought my manga was good? Well, I'm the type of person who finds every story interesting. So I don't really know what the general public considers good. Sam's eyes widened in shock, and she buried her head in her hands. That explains it. I finally get why you were the one weirdo reading my practically invisible online manga. You probably do the same with other creators, leaving comments for all of them, don't you? Yes. Sam was a master of reading people, so there was no point in lying. She glared at me, her eyes narrowing. You traitor! Traitor? That's not fair. Then tell me what's so good about this manga. She shoved the manuscript in my face. The scent of ink and paper filled my nose. First, the lines. Your lines feel alive, like they're about to move off the page. Then, there's your dialogue. It's so well crafted that I remember the lines after reading them just once. The pacing of the panels. Too mostly traditional but sometimes boldly unconventional. And too long. Sam dismissed my heartfelt praise in 3 sharp syllables. But she seemed motivated again. She placed the manuscript back on her desk and began drawing furiously. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. With Sam absorbed in her work, I found myself at a bit of a loss. Noticing dishes piling up in the kitchen, I decided to clean them up. After finishing the dishes, I returned to Sam's side. She was still focused on her work, her face serious and intense. I couldn't help but stare at her profile, completely captivated. Hey, Tucker. Sam spoke suddenly, without taking her eyes off the manuscript. I hadn't expected her to speak, so my voice cracked as I replied, yes. I'll overlook your wandering love for other works. But in return, I want you to love my work the most. Of course. Ever since I read Daydreaming, my heart has belonged to your stories. Good. Then we're fine. Her softened expression captivated me once again. From that day on, there were occasional demands. I can't work without Ghirardelli caramel sauce. Or I won't draw until Tucker lists 10 things he loves about my work. But Sam's writing progressed smoothly. Finally, the short-term serialization began. The results were phenomenal. Sam's work was met with overwhelming praise from the very first chapter. Originally planned as a 5-episode run, the flood of requests for more led to the manga becoming a full-fledged series. To celebrate the continuation of Sam's offerings to our senior, cheers! A few days after the continuation was decided, TG Publishing rented out a bar for a celebratory party. The attendees included Sam, me, Christina's Aramode editorial team, Sam's assistants, and Lynn, who, despite his busy schedule, had helped Sam out. Apparently, Lynn had once worked as Sam's assistant. Congratulations, Sam! I can't believe I get to serialize my work alongside yours. It feels like a dream. Lynn congratulated Sam enthusiastically. The editorial seniors also surrounded her, congratulating her warmly. From my spot at the edge of the table, I watched them idly. The distance between Sam and me felt somehow larger. Just then, Thomas dropped heavily into the seat next to me. His face flushed from drinking. Man, I can't believe the serialization actually got greenlit. But don't get cocky, Tucker, it's not like this happened because of you. Keep that in mind. I'll remember that. Satisfied with my modest response, Thomas drained his beer. But seriously, Sam's a woman? And a knockout at that. Maybe I should try to take over as her editor. Something in me twisted uncomfortably. On impulse, I grabbed the beer Thomas was about to drink and held back his arm. If you really want to become her editor for her sake, I'll step aside. But if you're just treating Sam like some trophy or accessory, then no way. Thomas stared at me, stunned, before his face darkened with anger. He yanked his arm free from my grip. Who the hell do you think you are, acting all high and mighty? You're just a temporary editor. Grumbling, he stormed off to join Lynn. Left alone, I sipped the beer I had saved from Thomas. It tasted unusually bitter. The party eventually wrapped up while I was still brooding. Tucker, you're walking me home. Sam ordered me as we left, and soon, we were walking side by side through the quiet night. The sharp scent of winter filled my lungs with each breath. Thank you, Tucker. My serialization continuing, it's all thanks to you. Her words brought Thomas's earlier comments back to mind, and a dull pain pricked my chest. I shook my head. No, it's not. Actually, Me Devil was cancelled. The confession made my eyes widen in shock. It was a huge hit, wasn't it? But I got cocky. I started making impossible demands of my editors. One by one, they quit, refusing to work with me. That only made me angrier, and the work suffered for it. The rankings in reader surveys dropped. In the end, they let me wrap it up with a conclusion I could be proud of, but only because it had been a hit. Her breath clouded the cold night air. After that, nothing I created worked. People said my stories were too dark, that my art was sloppy. I blamed it on editors who didn't care about me. I was wrong. You became my editor, and I finally realized how foolish I'd been. It wasn't the editors who failed me, I was the one without the skill or the drive. She lifted her face, her clear gaze locking onto mine. I forgot to breathe, mesmerized by the purity in her eyes. This time, I understand it's thanks to everyone. Shika, the other editors, Lynn, the assistants, and you, Tucker, who stood by me and believed in me. My manga was brought to life because of all of you. See? I've grown, haven't I? Her proud smile made my cheeks flush with heat. Before I knew it, Sam had taken both of my hands in hers. Her fingers were cold, likely from the winter air. Tucker, will you keep supporting me? Will you help me share my manga with the readers? Her red cheeks were probably from the cold. They had to be from the cold, otherwise, my heart might explode right here and now. Of course. I somehow managed to suppress the pounding in my chest as I answered, and Sam smiled shyly in response. Tucker, your hands were cold at first, but they're warming up now. Until we reached her apartment, Sam never let go of my hand. And I, too, clung to hers, not wanting to let go. A month had passed since the new year began. Today, Christina had said she had an announcement for everyone, so the entire department had gathered. Normally, at this hour, the editors would be visiting their respective manga artists or advising aspiring creators bringing in their manuscripts. Once everyone had settled, Christina spoke. This autumn, to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Me, the Devil, and the Antique Shop, we will hold a special exhibition of original artwork. What? Yes. I couldn't help but shout louder than anyone else. I quickly clamped a hand over my mouth, but everyone already knew I was a huge fan of Sam's, so they just chuckled. Thanks for that enthusiastic response, Tucker. I'll appoint you as the leader of the exhibition project. What? Me? But. I glanced around, unsure, when Thomas shoved his way to the front, past the senior editors. Christina, I object to this. He's a temporary editor. How can you entrust such an important project to him? His role was only supposed to last for the short-term serialization. Shouldn't he go back to the admin department? That's not possible, Thomas. Sam specifically said she wouldn't approve of anyone other than Tucker as the project leader. If we pull him off now, her bad mood will hit its peak, and you know what that means. Christina frowned in a way that suggested she didn't even want to imagine it. The room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Is Sam's bad mood really that bad? I wondered, confused. Sure, she had her whims, don't run out of Ghirardelli caramel sauce, or list 30 things you liked about this chapter, or even if you leave now, I'll stop working. But I found those requests kind of endearing. Thomas scowled openly but seemed unable to counter. He muttered something under his breath and retreated. Well then, Tucker, I'll leave it to you. Christina said. I had no choice but to accept. But to be honest, I was thrilled. Afterward, I headed to Sam's place. I've been appointed as the leader of the exhibition project. It's thanks to you putting in a good word. Thank you. I bowed my head, but Sam cupped my cheeks with her hands and lifted my face. She looked completely satisfied, a soft smile on her face. I just got my way again, that's all. There's no one I could entrust this to other than the person who loves me and my work so dearly. Her words made my heart skip a beat. For a moment, I panicked, wondering if she'd realized my feelings. Then she smirked mischievously. What's this? You're turning bright red. Tucker, everyone knows how much you love my manga, don't they? Oh, that's what she meant. I exhaled in relief, but even after I left her apartment that day, the tension lingered. In early April, we officially announced the exhibition. On social media, fans were buzzing with excitement. I'll definitely go, and I can't wait. Which made me incredibly happy. It also fired me up to make sure this exhibition would meet everyone's expectations. At the same time, something unbelievable happened. A request came in to adapt Daydreaming, my favorite of Sam's works, into an animated film. Sam approved the proposal, and production began. We decided to display the original Daydreaming manuscripts at the exhibition, too. The thought of my favorite story, once overlooked, finally getting the recognition it deserved filled me with pride. There's nothing quite like seeing the things you love appreciated by others. Word of the exhibition spread overseas, too, and I noticed some fans planning trips to Japan from the US and elsewhere. Devil has been translated into Japanese, Chinese, French, and Arabic and published abroad. So we decided to prepare explanation panels in those 4 languages for overseas visitors. It was a lot of work, but for Sam and for her fans around the world, it was worth it. Before I knew it, autumn had arrived, and the morning of the exhibition's opening day had come. I dragged the perpetually sleepy Sam out of bed, and we managed to arrive an hour before the doors opened. I was surprised to see a line of people already forming outside. Today, the exhibition was set to begin with a talk event featuring Sam and the Aramote editorial team. Everyone from the editorial department was here. As we headed to the exhibition hall, I suddenly heard Christina's sharp voice. This is... She rarely showed any signs of being rattled, so Sam and I exchanged a concerned look. When we reached the hall, the scene made my eyes widen in shock. Some of the displays we had carefully set up yesterday lay scattered across the floor. The most damaged were the explanation panels for the artwork. Beside me, Sam seethed with anger. This is terrible. Someone did this on purpose. Sam, calm down. We have an hour before opening. Let's fix this. Fix this? Look at it. I've been learning Japanese out of respect for my fans, but I can't read all these Chinese characters. And Arabic? I can't even begin to figure that out. How are we supposed to match the panels to the displays? She picked up a piece of a Chinese language panel, furious. Honestly, I can sort of guess French, but Chinese characters and Arabic? Not a chance. This isn't going to open on time. The guests are already lining up. So, Tucker, you're the one taking responsibility here, right? Thomas's words cast a heavy silence over the room. Sam clenched her fists, tears of frustration brimming in her eyes. I began gathering the Arabic panels without hesitation. Yes, I'll take responsibility. But I need everyone's help. Christina, you understand French, right? Could you handle those? Sure. But I don't know Arabic. I'll take care of it. I can read it. Thomas scowled. What? You, the admin guy, can read Arabic? Don't lie. I'm not lying. I can also read Japanese, Chinese, and French. I own every version of Me Devil published overseas. The room fell into a stunned silence. Thomas stared at me, dumbfounded. All right, everyone. Let's split up and repair the displays, quickly. Christina called out. The team jumped into action. Sam picked up panels with Chinese characters, sorting them into Japanese and Chinese. Thomas, however, remained rooted in place, watching everyone with a smug expression of disdain. Thomas, help us out. You can read Arabic too, can't you? Poof. Why would I help you? He sneered, glaring at me. Once I confirmed everyone else was focused on their tasks, I leaned close to Thomas and murmured softly. You're the one who broke the panels, aren't you? He snorted. What are you talking about? Got any proof? I silently pointed toward a surveillance camera. Thomas's face paled instantly. He clearly hadn't noticed it. I sighed internally, amazed at his oversight. He gritted his teeth audibly, fists clenched. So what? Are you going to call the police on me? No. I'll stay quiet, but you're going to help us. Oh, I see. You think you're doing me a favor? You think this makes you better than me? No. I just thought, you're a fan of Sam's, aren't you? You wouldn't want her to know you did this, would you? His face fell, all the venom draining out of him. What makes you think I'm a fan? Because the only things destroyed were the panels, not the artwork. And when I quoted a line from Daydreaming, you remembered the characters' names naturally. Not even Lynn knew about that one shot. Only a true fan would know. I smirked slightly. Thomas slumped his shoulders in defeat. Ah, yeah, I'm a fan too. Of Sam's. Just like you, my favorite is Daydreaming. But when I told people that, they mocked me. What's so great about that manga, they'd say. Back then, Sam wasn't a big name, which made it worse. So I hid being her fan. Meanwhile, you flaunt your love for her work and succeed because of it. It pissed me off. I was jealous, Tucker. Seeing his trembling fists, I offered him a piece of the scattered Arabic panel. That's not on you. The ones who mocked you were wrong. Every story carries the creator's heart, their thoughts. It's unacceptable to belittle a story or the people who love it. Thomas's eyes welled with tears. If only you'd been there back then. Maybe I wouldn't have turned out this bitter. He exhaled a long breath, and then turned toward the other editors who were busy with the repairs. Everyone, I'm sorry. This was my doing. The room froze. Thomas. I tried to stop him, but he raised a hand to silence me. Thomas? You ruined my exhibition? Sam's anger flared up immediately. Thomas apologized profusely and deeply. As a way to make up for this, though it's not enough, I suggest you post about this incident on social media. It'll generate buzz. People love to wield justice safely from behind a screen. His words made both Sam and me freeze for a moment. That line, it was from Me Devil, Volume 42, Chapter 363, Page 2, Panel 4. Fine. Let's do that. Sam relented, her anger abating. The repair work was finished just in time for the exhibition to open as scheduled. The senior editor in charge of social media uploaded a video of the repairs, and it went viral almost immediately. How awful. Who could have done this? Unbelievable. People like this are the worst. Comments flooded in. And Thomas read every single one. True to his prediction, the buzz brought even more attention to the exhibition. Lines stretched endlessly every day. And the event concluded as a massive success. Winter arrived again, my second since becoming Sam's editor. Tucker, have you considered working here permanently? Chica's sudden question left me speechless. When I didn't answer, she continued. As you know, Thomas is leaving next month. He's resigning voluntarily to take responsibility for what happened. Fortunately, Sam didn't want to make a big deal of it, and Lynn offered to hire Thomas as his manager. So his future is secure. But Era Mode will lose an important team member, and I need you to step up and fill that gap. But I don't think I'm capable of filling Thomas's role. Do you know what they used to call me in the admin department? Outsider. I know, but that was an act, wasn't it? I froze. Christina always saw straight through me. I sighed in defeat. She smiled, soft and encouraging. Everyone here recognizes your abilities. With your language skills, you could even work at one of our overseas branches, if that's what you wanted. But I'm asking about you. What do you want to do from now on? Her words struck deep. I've always wanted to read and love every story in existence. That's why I worked quietly in admin, leaving on time every day, no matter what others said about me. But above all, the stories I love most are Sam's. I want to support her as closely as possible. I want to help her share her stories with as many people as I can. And now, that opportunity is within reach. If I reach out, my happiness is right there. Finally acknowledging the desire welling up from the depths of my heart, I stepped forward and answered Christina, my voice clear and determined. I want to keep being Sam's editor. Please let me stay in Era Mode. Understood. I look forward to working with you, Tucker. Christina smiled and extended her hand. I took it firmly, shaking it with all the resolve I had. So, I've officially transferred to the Era Mode editorial team. I'll continue as your editor from now on. Please take care of me, I said, sitting formally in Sam's living room. She muttered, sounding uninterested. To her, perhaps it didn't matter who her editor was. That indifference was part of Sam's charm, or so I told myself, though a twinge of sadness pricked at my heart. By the way, Tucker, I've been asked to draw a romance manga. It's a request from Dreamscape Digest at SB Publishing. You know, the romance-style manga I posted online? Apparently, it caught their attention. Wow, a romance manga by Sam? That's exciting. Any hint of melancholy I'd felt moments earlier vanished completely, replaced by an eager anticipation that made my chest swell. Seeing my enthusiasm, Sam shrugged, looking exasperated. So here's the idea I've come up with so far. A girl who loves drawing manga meets a boy who inspires her to aim for her dream of becoming a professional manga artist. Slowly, she begins to fall for this boy who truly loves her stories. Whoa, that sounds amazing. I'll buy it. Quick decision, huh? And don't you think this sounds familiar? I tilted my head in confusion as Sam let out a sigh. Suddenly, her brow furrowed sharply, and she gave me a shove. Before I knew it, we both toppled onto the nearby sofa, Sam pushing me down. Caught off guard, I didn't even have time to brace myself. Sam straddled me, leaning close enough that her face hovered inches from mine. The boy in the story? He is modeled after you. That's why I can't decide how it ends. I'm sure the boy loves the story of the girl. What about the girl? What does the boy think of her? Her breath tickled my face, and her scent surrounded me, making my heart pound uncontrollably. It wasn't hard for me to guess who the girl in her story was meant to be. I love you, Sam. I love you. Sam's eyes sparkled brilliantly. Oh, right. I never told you my real name, did I? It's... Before I could react, she leaned in closer, and our lips met. Every story carries the thoughts and emotions of its creator. Wishes for peace, the need to vent frustrations, the hope to make readers smile. The desire to share beloved characters with the world. Each story is unique and precious. That's why we should never belittle a story, nor mock the people who are moved by it. As Sam's editor, I'll keep working to ensure her stories reach as many people as possible, even if it feels like chasing a dream in broad daylight. What's wrong? Nothing. My son, Andrew, entered the house without looking at me, his head hanging low. It's fine. I'm not going to work anymore. What do you mean? Explain yourself. He clearly didn't want to talk to us and tried to ignore me as he stepped inside. But I was shocked when I saw Andrew's back. It was because something had been stuck to Andrew's back. It was a piece of paper with the words "No junior high graduate allowed" written on it. This was probably Daniel's doing. He must have slapped it on Andrew when he turned him away. My father, Kevin, who had stormed into the company, got straight to the point as soon as he settled into his seat. Canceled the entire $20 million deal. At the time, I wasn't fully aware, but that single statement would become the trigger that cornered Daniel. My name is Ryan. I am a man in my 40s, working as an employee at a company. I assist my father, Kevin, who is the president of the company. My father, who is in his 60s, has a strict personality and holds high standards for everything. Because he never compromises at work, every day can be tough. However, this also makes the work rewarding, so I would say I feel fulfilled every day. I have a son, Andrew. Since he was young, his dream was to work at a model-making company. He took a pre-employment assessment for a major company located far away and successfully passed. Starting this spring, he will begin working at that company. As a father, I was overjoyed that his dream was about to come true. When Andrew got the job offer, I felt as though I were the one being congratulated. Andrew has loved assembling models since he was a child, so I truly think it's wonderful. Surely, he would experience the same sense of purpose that I have in my own work. Honestly, I considered getting a job at an ordinary company since this one's pretty famous. But I didn't want to live with regrets in my one and only life. It's your life, so you should live it however you want. You've loved building models since you were a kid. I'm glad you passed the interview. Congratulations. That's right. Don't hold back or give up on anything. Life is short, and before you know it, you'll be an old man if you just sit around. When Andrew hesitated just a little, my wife Samantha and I said these words to encourage him. Even my father, though often strict, was kind to his grandson. Smiling, he said, "Do your best." Andrew's department had already been decided, and he had finished greeting his new workplace. He mentioned that the next step would be attending the entrance ceremony. Normally, this would have been such a happy occasion. But I was slightly worried because the manager in his assigned department, Daniel, seemed to dislike Andrew. Andrew has a stronger sense of responsibility than most people, and when problems arise, he tends to carry the burden alone because he doesn't want to trouble others. Although Daniel wouldn't attend the entrance ceremony, there was a chance Andrew might run into him somewhere. I just hoped nothing bad would happen to him. A few days later, Andrew woke up to the long-awaited morning of his company entrance ceremony. Although he had been slightly nervous and had trouble sleeping the night before, he didn't look sleep-deprived. Waking up to the sound of sparrows, I made my way from my room to the living room. As I entered, I heard Andrew and Samantha talking, both of them still sounding sleepy. "Did you get enough sleep? You seem a little out of it. You need to wake up properly, you know." "I'm fine. It takes about an hour on the bullet train to get to the company, so I'll wake up by then." When I walked into the room and greeted them, Andrew was already sitting at the table, clearly fresh out of bed. "Good morning." "Oh, good morning. You're up quite early today." "Well, today's Andrew's big day, his entrance ceremony. I couldn't sleep because I was nervous for him. It wasn't even my own event, but knowing it was such a turning point in his life left me restless. Incidentally, my father, who lives with us, is an extremely early riser. By the time the rest of us wake up, he's already out of the house. As the company president, I suppose he has many responsibilities to handle. While I was lost in thought, Samantha, who had been preparing breakfast, brought over a plate. On it were 2 slices of bread, a fried egg, and some bacon, which were meant for me. I turned it into a sandwich and started eating. "Andrew, are you all set? You didn't forget anything, did you? And you'll introduce yourself properly to the other employees, right?" "Of course I will. I've been preparing for this day for a while now. Didn't I have you and Mom help me practice for interviews over and over? You even checked my things for me." "That's right. Haha, you were so eager yesterday." "Yeah, you were like a little kid." I teased him, and Andrew, looking a bit miffed, fired back with a quick retort. That morning, the 3 of us sat around the table, chatting happily without any idea of what was to come. Once breakfast ended, Samantha joined us at the table, and we started watching TV together. Just then, the news that had been playing earlier was interrupted, and a quiz segment began. It seemed to be about dining etiquette and trivia. The questions were familiar to me, so I answered them with ease. "That's called a finger bowl. It's used to clean your fingers." I didn't know such a thing existed. "And by the way, with utensils like knives and forks, you're supposed to use the ones placed on the outside first." Samantha looked impressed, and Andrew seemed surprised, which I found oddly satisfying. What was being broadcast on TV seemed like knowledge that had no relevance to an ordinary family like ours. However, because I often encountered such things through my work, I ended up learning them thoroughly. After a few more questions, the quiz ended, and another segment began. Taking the opportunity, I turned to Andrew and asked something that had been on my mind. "By the way, you visited the company the other day to introduce yourself, right? How was it?" "It was fine. The atmosphere was nice, and everyone treated me kindly, so there's no problem at all." "That's good, but if anything happens like trouble or someone bothering you, you need to talk to us about it, okay?" "I know. There's nothing to worry about." The last time we talked, he seemed a bit uneasy about his manager, but perhaps it had been resolved. I wanted to ask more questions, but I knew better than to interfere too much. Even though he's my son, he's also a fully grown adult. As a parent, the best thing I could do was offer my help only when he needed it. Still, thinking about his childhood often made me overly protective. This tendency of mine stemmed from an incident during his final year of junior high school. About a month before graduation, Andrew had been in an accident. While walking across the street, a car that ran a red light hit him. Because of that, he missed his graduation ceremony and didn't go on to high school. I regret not being able to attend the graduation ceremony, but it's all about how you look at things. Since I couldn't go to high school, I can just start working earlier than everyone else. Andrew, who said that, seemed to have decided to start working after recovering, thinking it might as well be the best course of action. And so, Andrew stepped out into the world. Afterward, until he turned 20, he worked part-time at factories, but to be honest, I had hoped he would attend high school properly. Even if he couldn't attend a regular high school, there were other options if we had explained the circumstances. Because of that incident, I couldn't help but worry about him. A person's worth isn't determined by their education, but there are people in the world who judge others based on it. I just hope Andrew wouldn't be hurt by those kinds of people. A few minutes later, Andrew left the house, but as I glanced at the entryway, I let out a small sigh. That kid, after all those reminders, he still forgot something. It seemed he had left his watch by the entrance. So, I hurriedly ran out to chase after him. Andrew was taking the bullet train to commute to his workplace. If he boarded it, I wouldn't be able to catch up, so I had to hurry. Luckily, an empty taxi passed by, and I took it to the station. There, I searched for Andrew. However, during the busy morning hours, finding one person in the crowd was a challenge. I walked around for several minutes, but it felt like I wouldn't find him. Just as I was about to give up, I miraculously spotted him. It appeared he was helping a woman in a wheelchair. Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done if you were late for work because of me. It's fine. There's still plenty of time. Near the elevator, I saw Andrew cheerfully conversing with the woman as he helped her. Seeing that, I felt relieved and was about to say something. However, before I could, Andrew spoke to someone. It turned out to be a male supervisor from work. Daniel? What a coincidence. I didn't know we lived in the same area. His name was Daniel. He is in the same generation as me, in his 40s. It seemed that, like Andrew, he also commuted a long distance, as he was walking toward the bullet train station. I had already heard a bit about Daniel from Andrew. Good morning. My name is Andrew, and I'll be working with you starting today. It's a pleasure to meet you. Although Andrew had introduced himself at the workplace a few days ago, he probably felt it was polite to formally greet him again. Andrew bowed respectfully toward Daniel. However, Daniel didn't respond. Whether he didn't hear him or chose to ignore him, he just walked on. Andrew, flustered, hurriedly followed him, trying to repeat his greeting. Excuse me. But before Andrew could finish, Daniel cut him off with an irritated voice. Shut up. I heard you just fine. Can't you tell I'm ignoring you on purpose? Ha? I froze in place, shocked by Daniel's unexpected words. He stopped walking and glared fiercely at Andrew. I heard you're a junior high school graduate. Don't talk to me like we're equals. Know your place. What? I was just trying to introduce myself. Andrew had done nothing wrong. And yet, his educational background seemed to be enough for Daniel to harbor such intense hatred. Andrew had been thinking about happily working at his dream job until this morning, but for something like this to happen, it's just too cruel. To be treated with such hostility by his manager on his first day. You shouldn't even be joining the company. Scum like you doesn't belong here. I strongly opposed your hiring. But HR clearly doesn't know what they're doing. Andrew seemed to be racking his brain, searching for words to defend himself or prove his worth. He opened and closed his mouth several times, but nothing came out. Don't think you can find an ally here. If you join the company, I'll make sure you and your family regret it. My parents are well connected in this area, you know. It'd be easy to spread rumors. I later heard that Daniel's parents were both school teachers and had a wide network of acquaintances in the local community. Having mentored countless students and built relationships with influential figures in their careers, they had a certain standing in society. If Daniel's family were to maliciously spread rumors, there was no doubt it would reach a lot of people. In reality, his parents were not that kind of people, but neither I nor Andrew knew that at the time. So, both of us were completely rattled. I just wanted to get along. In front of me, Andrew hung his head, his voice trembling with tears. It wasn't that Andrew had a weak mentality compared to others. But hearing his family brought into the situation must have left him deeply shaken. Even Mr. Foster, the company president, would be troubled by a junior high school graduate like you. Sure. He might act welcoming for appearance's sake, given his position. After all, he can't write no low education applicants aloud on a job listing. Can he? Daniel's words referenced Mr. Foster, the president of the company where Andrew was about to work. Mr. Foster was a man who firmly believed everyone deserved a second chance and had created opportunities for people to restart their lives. In fact, I knew him well. He was never the type of person to judge others based on their academic background, but my true feelings couldn't reach Daniel, who was far away. All I could do was watch, and in my line of sight, Andrew was trembling, perhaps overwhelmed by the shock. I wanted nothing more than to rush over and encourage him, but I knew it wasn't my place as a parent to interfere unnecessarily. Clenching my fists tightly, I continued to watch. Eventually, Andrew pulled himself together, looked Daniel straight in the eyes, and began to speak. "You don't have to like me. Just let me work here. I'll do everything I'm told, and I won't be a burden." He kept speaking, asking Daniel not to reject him simply because of his educational background. With unwavering eyes, he bowed repeatedly, his voice filled with earnest determination. However, Daniel remained unmoved. "Is that all you have to say?" Daniel, as he said that, wore a look as if he were staring at something utterly worthless. With an expression full of disdain, Daniel grabbed Andrew's shoulder. It wasn't an action to encourage him or to accept someone with a lower academic background. It was a gesture to reject Andrew as a person. "Just the sight of you makes me sick. I can't bear the thought of having you in the same department." Saying this, he spun Andrew around to face the station's exit. Seeing this, I quickly turned and decided to head home. Andrew will probably go home. So when he comes back, I need to be the first to greet him and offer him some reassuring words. As I hurried away, I heard Daniel's cold, cutting voice behind me. "Stop wasting my time, you junior high school graduate. Go home and find some other job." I couldn't even begin to imagine how Andrew must have felt at that moment. What expression did he wear as he walked away? I wanted to know, but I couldn't interfere. He had his pride, and I knew he wouldn't want me to see him in such a humiliating situation. So, all I could do was walk back home. Clenching my fists in frustration, I started to think about what I needed to do next. If Andrew came home and chose to talk to me about it, I had to be ready to do everything in my power to help him. As a father, I was determined to give him all the support I could. After about 20 minutes, I returned home and explained everything to Samantha as we waited for Andrew. "What's with that scary look on your face? Did you give him his watch?" "Well, a lot happened." Samantha, holding the tailored clothes Andrew was supposed to wear for the company's formal events, was speechless after hearing my explanation. Her shock quickly turned to anger. Even Samantha, who was usually so calm, couldn't hide her frustration. "That's just awful. Andrew must be so hurt." "Yeah. I want to help him if I can, but it's up to him to decide what to do next." As we were having this conversation, Andrew returned home. I quickly grabbed my work bag, pretending I was just about to leave for work. In my haste, I forgot to hide the formal clothes I had left out for a party, but thankfully, Andrew didn't seem to notice. He avoided making eye contact with us. "Andrew? I thought you already left for work." I will act as if I know nothing and call out to Andrew. But Andrew didn't respond. He simply stood there, silent and unmoving. Samantha, trying to help, stepped in next. "Did you forget something? You'll be late if you don't hurry back and grab it." "It's not that." "It's not." Finally, Andrew spoke, his voice cracking as he looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. I called out to Andrew, silently pleading, "Please, just talk to me." "What happened?" "Nothing." Andrew hung his head low and walked further into the house. "It's over." I'm not going to the company anymore. What do you mean? Explain it to us. He probably wanted to avoid talking to us and was trying to ignore us as he went into the house. However, I was startled when I saw Andrew's back. On Andrew's back, there was something stuck. It was a piece of paper with the words "No junior high graduate allowed" written on it. It had to be Daniel's doing. He must have stuck it on Andrew's back when he sent him away. I pulled the paper off and held it in my hand, praying that Andrew would open up to us. Can't you tell us what's going on? Are we so unreliable that you can't come to us? Hearing those words, Andrew finally broke down, tears spilling over as he looked at me. It seemed my words had reached him, as Andrew began to speak from there, telling us everything. I held Andrew tightly as he cried, comforting him. In life, there are things we can't face alone. And it's never wrong to lean on someone when we need help. I made sure to tell Andrew this. A few minutes later, as soon as I finished listening to Andrew, I called my father. Though he was already at the company, he promised without hesitation to help his grandson. I couldn't stand idly by either. After giving Andrew the watch he'd forgotten, we quickly left the house and headed to his company. But Andrew, ever thoughtful, felt guilty about dragging me and his grandfather into the situation. As soon as we sat down on the bullet train, he began to apologize. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm such a mess, even at this age. I can't even handle my own problems. Don't say that. You've grown into a kind, considerate son who cares about his family. I could never blame you for this. Besides, this time, the other side is the one being unfair. There's no shame in accepting my help. As I said this, I reached over and patted his head, trying to comfort him. I thought back to the time Andrew was lying in that hospital bed after his accident, apologizing for what had happened. Even though he's an adult now, he's still my child, the one I will always protect. After about an hour, we arrived at Andrew's company. At the reception desk, I introduced myself, and they immediately escorted us to a meeting room. There, we reunited with my father, and 3 generations of our family sat together, waiting. It was strange to think that we'd all be gathered here under these circumstances. Why did they respond so quickly when you gave your name? Dad, Grandpa, are you hiding something from me? Andrew looked surprised, clearly taken aback by how promptly we were accommodated. In the meantime, the office became increasingly chaotic, and a man appeared. Approaching us nervously, visibly sweating, was Mr. Foster, the president we had worked with many times before. Once my father had settled himself into his seat, he immediately cut to the chase. Canceled the entire $20 million deal. That one sentence was enough to corner Daniel. Whether the deal would actually be canceled or not was beside the point. My father said it to ensure Mr. Foster understood the gravity of the situation. At that moment, however, Andrew, who was with us, had no idea what was going on and looked utterly confused. He stared at me intently, as if demanding an explanation. I couldn't exactly leave him in the dark, so I leaned over and explained the situation in a low voice. Actually, our company has a business relationship with this one. I see Mr. Foster quite often. Really? You never told me that. Sorry, but it couldn't be helped. Confidentiality obligations and all that. Andrew had been working for several years, albeit for a short time, out in the world. I heard that his work mainly involved physical labor in factories, so he didn't have many opportunities to handle confidential information. Still, he should have understood. He should know that sharing information obtained through work carelessly with others is unacceptable. Given how unexpected this must have been for him, though, his reaction was understandable. After all, neither my father nor I ever discussed work at home. On weekends, I usually spent my time watching TV or chatting casually with Samantha. My father, too, often spends his time tending to the garden or enjoying a game of chess with the elderly members of the community. It was no wonder Andrew had no idea. At the company, I assist my father, who's the president. I often accompany him to meetings with other executives. So it's not unusual for me to know other company presidents. Exactly. As a president, it's crucial to maintain strong connections with other companies. On that note, Ryan has been a great help. His approachable nature allows him to communicate smoothly with anyone. He and Mr. Foster have a long history and are on good terms. Hearing this, Andrew's eyes widened in disbelief. Throughout my life, I had accumulated a wealth of knowledge and skills, which I now used in a role similar to that of a secretary. I advised on management decisions, offered solutions to internal company issues, and supported the business in any way I could. After explaining that, I awkwardly added a few more words. Well, my father and I can't actually cancel the deal on a whim. Sometimes, though, you have to say something drastic to make your anger clear. Unlike Andrew, who had only graduated junior high school, I had completed a prestigious university at the top of my class. I used the knowledge I gained there to support the employees and operations of our company. Still, I chose not to bring up the past, as it wasn't something Andrew needed to hear. My father had also graduated from a respectable university with excellent marks. Perhaps to avoid pressuring Andrew as the grandson of such an accomplished family, my father, too, had chosen to remain silent. Sensing a pause in the conversation, Mr. Foster cautiously spoke. So, did one of my employees offend your son in some way? His humility seemed unbecoming of a company president, but given our history, it was understandable. Pretending not to mind, I continued speaking. Well, something quite serious happened. You see. Over the next 10 minutes, Andrew and I took turns explaining the situation. This is unbelievable. This isn't just a business problem. Using someone's family to make threats, that's completely unacceptable as a human being. Mr. Foster paled, his face filled with shame. I'm deeply sorry for the serious misconduct of one of my employees. I'll call in here immediately to get to the bottom of this. He bowed deeply, apologizing sincerely. After a firm apology, he promised to summon Daniel. At that moment, Mr. Foster regained his composure, embodying the dignity expected of a company president. A few minutes later, Daniel, who had been summoned, entered with a puzzled look on his face. He greeted Mr. Foster properly and introduced himself politely to my father and me. However, the moment his eyes landed on Andrew, his expression twisted in confusion and suspicion. It was clear he couldn't understand why Andrew was even there. Seeing this, Mr. Foster immediately scolded him. Hey, that's rude. Say hello to Andrew as well. Daniel then looked back and forth between Andrew and Mr. Foster with a bewildered expression, as if to say, "What?" After a few seconds of hesitation, he carefully chose his words and spoke to Mr. Foster. Pardon me, Mr. Foster, but perhaps you're mistaking this man for someone else? He's not the kind of person who belongs in a place like this." Hearing this, Mr. Foster's face sank with visible disappointment. And who gave you the authority to decide that? Whether or not he belongs here is for me to determine, don't you think? That may be true, but I assumed you didn't know who this man really is. I may not know every detail, but I have more than enough reason for him to be here. Daniel's expression grew even more puzzled at Mr. Foster's words. For now, sit down on the sofa. I understand there's some history between you and Andrew, but I don't know the finer details yet. As instructed, Daniel sat down on the sofa, seemingly thinking that Andrew had said something unnecessary. Glaring fiercely at Andrew, he silently opened his mouth. It looked like he was trying to say something through lip movements. I couldn't make out what he was saying, but he probably wanted to tell Andrew something like, "Don't say anything more ridiculous." Mr. Foster, there's really no reason to discuss this here. I don't know what you're worried about, but it's nothing that warrants your concern. The moment Daniel said that, the atmosphere surrounding Mr. Foster shifted. The cold air surrounding Mr. Foster felt sharp and unyielding, entirely unlike his earlier demeanor. How many times must I say this? It's not for you to decide. There won't be a third warning. Watch your tongue if you know what's good for you. I'm sorry. Daniel's face went pale, his body visibly trembling. Even Andrew seemed intimidated, his shoulders trembling slightly. I've heard enough to know there was some trouble on the way to work this morning. I was told that you told Andrew not to come to work because he's a junior high school graduate. Is that accurate? That's completely wrong. I only said it out of kindness. It sounds like I had bad intentions, but I didn't. Oh? Out of kindness, you say? So, threatening to spread bad rumors about his family, that was also an act of kindness? Mr. Foster's tone was calm, almost gentle, but the coldness in his demeanor remained chilling. The softness of his voice contrasted with the sharpness in his eyes, making him all the more intimidating. Daniel, shaking uncontrollably, tried desperately to defend himself. That's nonsense. I didn't say anything like that. And honestly, if someone skips the entrance ceremony just because of a little strong advice, that's on them. He's an irresponsible new hire. I'm sure he's lying. It was at that moment that I first thought about the time. When I looked at the watch on my wrist, I realized that the entrance ceremony was already over. With everything that had happened, I had forgotten, but Andrew was supposed to be attending that ceremony. Thinking about how he should have been there, feeling proud and happy, made me a little sad. Carrying that feeling, I turned to Daniel and began to speak. I made sure to stay calm and composed, avoiding any emotional outbursts. I'd appreciate it if you refrained from insulting my son. If we're talking about dishonesty, someone who resorts to cowardly tactics like what you've done seems far more likely to be lying. Even my father could no longer remain silent. His voice, heavy and commanding, cut through the tension. Speaking ill of others doesn't elevate you. If anything, it only diminishes your own worth. You should remember that. Daniel flinched visibly, as if struck by the words, and fell silent. Still, perhaps thinking that saying nothing wouldn't change the situation, he began to speak in a low, hesitant voice. I didn't put up any paper. That's ridiculous. I'd never do something so foolish. In denying it, Daniel unknowingly dug himself into a deeper hole. Mr. Foster's voice turned ice-cold as he delivered his next words. I never mentioned anything about a paper. Why would you think that? That's because, well, I just assumed if it's harassment, then maybe something like a note would be involved. As he stubbornly tried to make excuses over and over, Mr. Foster silenced him with a sharp reprimand. The intensity of his anger was unimaginable compared to the timid demeanor he had when we first met. Enough already. Admit to what you've done. Daniel's face crumbled, and at last, he broke down, his voice shaking. I'm sorry. It was all my fault. Please forgive me. Daniel, now on the verge of tears, bit his lip as he glanced at us. But there were still things he needed to explain. Why did you do something like this? When Mr. Foster asked, Daniel began to speak with a serious expression. Because he's a junior high school graduate. If someone with a low academic background works here, it disrupts the order of our company. They won't perform well, and nothing good can come from it. Daniel spoke as though expecting Mr. Foster's agreement. His previously weak voice grew stronger, as if he had found confidence in his reasoning. I admit my methods were immature. I should have explained things to him properly, so he could understand his shortcomings. But I don't think what I was trying to achieve was wrong. It was clear that Daniel's mindset was fundamentally flawed. Hearing his explanation, Mr. Foster pressed his hand to his temple, as though fighting off a headache. So you're saying that people with low educational backgrounds, like Andrew, don't belong here? That your actions may have been wrong, but driving him away was correct? And that you still don't want him working here? Exactly, Mr. Foster. I'm glad you understand what I mean. Daniel's face brightened, as though he had finally found someone who agreed with him. He failed to notice the deep disappointment in Mr. Foster's gaze. With a long sigh, Mr. Foster finally responded. I don't understand why you look down so much on those with lower education. There are all kinds of people in the world. Deciding someone's worth without even getting to know them is wrong, don't you think? I don't need to know them to understand. People with low education never fit into society. It's just obvious. Hearing Daniel's words, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of curiosity. What on earth had he seen throughout his life? Perhaps he had witnessed countless terrible actions by people with little education. As it turned out, I was right. Near my house, there's a rundown high school. I've seen it all, kids shouting at all hours, causing trouble, and disturbing everyone. I was sick of it every single day. I have a lot on my mind, but I understand that he's been troubled by people from that high school throughout his life. I sympathize with him, but I can't stand the thought of Andrew being seen as the same. I understand where you're coming from, Daniel, but don't impose your personal views on our grandson. Isn't that right, Mr. Foster? Indeed, for this, you'll face a small punishment. What? It's unfortunate, but this is your first offense. You'll be punished for sending a new employee home on your own. Additionally, you must apologize to Andrew for judging him based on his education. That's completely unacceptable. That said, I can understand some of the frustration you felt. After a moment of thought, Mr. Foster announced that Daniel's punishment was cleaning the company's restrooms for 1 month. Daniel looked dissatisfied, but he reluctantly accepted. He also apologized to Andrew for the note and his inappropriate threats regarding his family. With Daniel's punishment settled, my father took the opportunity to discuss our company's future business relationship with Mr. Foster. Amidst the busyness of work, opportunities to step into another company are limited. He likely thought to take care of anything that needed to be done while he was there. While my grandson's well-being is important, we also have a responsibility to the employees who rely on us. I simply moved up a previously planned discussion. I've also managed to negotiate slightly better terms for our deal moving forward. As both a president and a person, there still seems to be much I can learn from my father. I've been assisting him for many years, but during this incident, I nearly lost my composure at times, making me realize how far I still have to go. After this, Andrew officially began working at the company the next day, alongside Daniel. Andrew has been working hard to earn his recognition. In the product development department, where they design model prototypes and brainstorm ideas for new products, he seems to be giving it his all, sacrificing sleep to keep up the effort. He told me that he's inspired every day and that it's so much more fulfilling than when he was just an ordinary company employee. Whenever Andrew shares updates about his work with Samantha and me, his face is always bright and full of energy. Seeing him, I realized how much achieving a dream and landing one's ideal job can truly change a person. However, that initial happiness didn't last long. Before long, Andrew was relegated to menial tasks. Daniel, isn't there anything I can help with? I'll do anything. I already told you, you're in the way. Stop talking to me. There's nothing you're capable of handling. Andrew pleaded with Daniel to let him contribute more. But Daniel, still holding on to his prejudice, refused to give him any real responsibilities. He must still think that people with little education are of no use. I find that to be utterly foolish. It seems Daniel's way of thinking wasn't accepted by those around him, as his colleagues began to criticize his actions. Poor Andrew. He's working so hard, yet Daniel says he's incapable. Judging someone based on their education alone is cruel. Why can't Daniel see what's right in front of him? Academic background doesn't determine a person's true worth. We can all see that Andrew is a good, hardworking man. The problem is that Daniel isn't really looking at him. He's filtering everything through his own biases. According to Andrew's colleagues, the department had never employed someone with a junior high or high school diploma before. Still, they all expressed the same opinion. Daniel was never the type to harass others. I can't believe he's behaving like this. It seemed that Daniel was kind and accommodating toward people with backgrounds similar to his own. However, this incident made him realize just how distorted his values had become, and the shock of it was clear. Isn't my way of thinking normal? Up until now, everyone I spoke to agreed with me. Surrounded by people who shared similar beliefs for most of his life, Daniel hadn't had a reason to question his worldview. This time, though, something shifted in him. Perhaps it was the first time he felt the need to reflect on his own actions. He voluntarily requested a demotion and became a regular employee. Not only that, but he also decided to transfer to another department. He decided, after discussing with the HR team, to work in an area where employees with lower academic backgrounds were more prevalent. He wanted to challenge his own values and look at the world from a different perspective. His decision struck me as extreme, but I respected his determination not to go easy on himself. From what I later heard, adjusting to this new environment wasn't easy for him. The work was unfamiliar, and he often had to rely on the kindness of senior colleagues. Still, Andrew later told me that Daniel had been working hard, reflecting on his mistakes every day, and coming to terms with his previously flawed mindset. A year passed. Today is the day of the anniversary party for the company where Andrew works. As expected of a large corporation, the event is being held in a spacious hall rented out at a hotel. My father and I were also invited, and it was there that we saw Daniel again for the first time in a long while. He had changed so much that he was unrecognizable compared to a year ago. When Daniel and Andrew crossed paths, it was also their first meeting in a long time. After exchanging updates about their lives, Daniel suddenly bowed deeply. "I'm truly sorry for what I did back then. My way of thinking was wrong. Please forgive me." Daniel shared how tough the past year had been for him. He admitted that he often relied on senior colleagues for help and even struggled with injuries while adjusting to the new work environment. When his prejudice against others' academic backgrounds was revealed, some colleagues ridiculed him. On top of that, there was also a time when he angered the son of an executive, which caused quite a stir. Apparently, he was even threatened that harm would come to his family. After experiencing the same kind of exclusion, I finally understood how Andrew must have felt. I did something truly awful, and I'm ashamed of myself. But it was clear that Daniel had grown tremendously as a person through those hardships. For both Andrew and Daniel, the events of a year ago had been anything but pleasant. However, it was clear that those experiences were necessary for their growth. Later that evening, my father and I had a chance to speak with Mr. Foster as well. "You've grown stronger. You're a much more capable president than you were a year ago. It's all thanks to Ryan when I was just starting out. I'll never forget the support you gave me back then." "Oh, I'd love to hear more about that. Any stories about my son's achievements are always of interest to me." I told my father about the time when Mr. Foster was just an ordinary employee. It feels like a distant memory now, but back then, I taught him many of the basic social norms he didn't yet understand. Interesting. Andrew has grown into a responsible, family-oriented young man. And you, Ryan, have become someone who values the connections you make. Come on, you're embarrassing me. Truly, I owe so much to Ryan. I was just a privileged boy, sheltered by my parents. When I entered the real world, I didn't know a thing. If I hadn't met Ryan at that small bar and received his guidance, I wouldn't be where I am today. At the time, I thought he was an unreliable man. But that same person is now the president of a company that has become one of our business partners. Not only that, it's also the company where my son, Andrew, works. It's funny how life brings people together in unexpected ways. After enjoying myself at the party, I returned home and spent time talking with my family about various things. A year ago, I couldn't have imagined it, but Andrew has grown into someone I can truly rely on. He's learned to lean on others and no longer tries to carry everything on his own. Now, Andrew is planning to gift us a trip as a token of his gratitude. Dad, Mom, and Grandpa, let's go on a trip soon. I managed to get tickets for a nice hotel and some leisure facilities. Please keep your schedules open. You really are such a thoughtful young man. But for now, you should focus on settling into your job. That's right. As your parents, we just did what any parent would. A year has passed. It's time I did something to give back. Andrew truly is a kind and thoughtful person. He's responsible and family-oriented. On top of that, he has a genuine compassion for anyone who is struggling. Well, since Andrew went through the effort of getting these tickets, I'll make sure to clear my schedule. You're a busy company president. Can you make it work? I'll do my best. This is a special gift from my grandson, after all. Life will surely bring more challenges in the future. But I believe that Andrew, with the support of those around him, will be able to overcome them. After all, that's what it means to live. We help one another, support each other, and keep moving forward. Even Daniel managed to grow and overcome his flaws, thanks to the help of Mr. Foster and the senior employees at his new workplace. No matter how difficult the challenges ahead may seem, as long as we don't give up and continue fighting, I believe we can always make it through.